I was kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother. That night, the smell of ham and cinnamon sugar cookies still hung in the air when she told me to get out and take the drama with you. I stood there in my childhood living room, blinking at her like I had misunderstood. But she meant it. One minute I was cleaning up after dinner. The next I was on the porch, clutching my coat and the container of cranberry sauce I had made from scratch, because of course I had made it, like I did every year, like I did everything. They all watched from inside. My dad looked down at his phone. My brother, the golden child, didn't even bother pausing his game. My aunt whispered something and giggled. No one stopped her. No one asked why. This wasn't the first time they made me feel small. It was just the first time they made it literal. Growing up, I was the helper. That's what Mom called me, my little helper. When I was 9, that meant wrapping gifts while she shopped. At 16, it meant managing the house while she recovered from cosmetic procedures. In my 20s, it meant taking unpaid time off to drive her to her appointments, cook, clean, and somehow still be told I was ungrateful for not appreciating family. Meanwhile, my brother, Eric, could do no wrong. He had ambition. He was busy. He couldn't possibly make it to Thanksgiving unless we hosted it around his schedule. And when he did show up, he got praised for bringing wine. Once. From a gas station. Every Thanksgiving, I cooked the full meal. I did the turkey, the stuffing, the pies. Mom would sit and bark orders while complimenting Eric's hard work and joking, well, at least one of my kids has a real career. I have a career. I run a property management business. But since I do it remotely and don't dress in suits, she thinks it's a hobby. The betrayal wasn't one single event. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. It was being told I was selfish for not loaning Eric money after already giving him thousands. It was watching Mom defend him when he trashed my car after a night out. Boys will be boys. It was being told that I wasn't invited to a family brunch because you wouldn't enjoy it anyway. Then came the trust. I found out about it by accident. A conversation between my cousin and my uncle, low and hushed, thinking I wasn't listening. There had been a family trust fund left by my grandmother, specifically intended to support her grandchildren equally, but only one grandchild ever saw a cent, Eric. Mom was the executor. When I asked her about it, she said, it was better used where it could make a difference. Eric needed help getting his MBA. I didn't even get a phone call. That night, I went home and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. The kind of crying that empties you. That leaves your eyes raw and your throat scraped out. I had given them so much. My time, my money, my energy, my silence. I thought maybe if I gave enough, they'd see me. Maybe if I kept showing up, they'd realize I was worth loving. Instead, they handed me a box of leftovers and told me I was making a scene. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling and a new thought burned its way through the numbness. What if I stopped helping? What if I stopped playing the role they wrote for me? What would happen if, for once, I chose myself? After that night, I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't show up to Sunday dinners or pretend to care about Eric's latest big break in some industry he barely understood. I just stopped. At first, it felt like holding my breath underwater. Quiet. Pressurized. Every part of me screaming to surface, to say something, to beg. But I didn't. I deleted the family group chat, took my name off the emergency contact forms. I told myself it was just distance, not punishment. Not yet. Mom started with the guilt trips. We're family. We don't just give up on each other. That was rich. Considering she gave up on me years ago, she just didn't have the decency to do it all at once. Then came the calls. Voicemails stacked like junk mail, some sweet, some scathing. Eric left one where he called me mentally unstable and said I was tearing the family apart. That one I played twice, just to feel something. Then I blocked his number. I thought maybe they'd get bored. Maybe they'd let me go. But you know what narcissistic families hate more than confrontation? Silence. So they escalated. Emails from Mom with subject lines like your attitude and disrespect. One of them included a screenshot of a Facebook comment I'd left on a friend's post about family boundaries. She highlighted my words like I was on trial. Funny how ungrateful you've become. My dad, who's made a career out of emotional absenteeism, called once, out of the blue, to say, you should apologize to your mother. She's hurting. I laughed. couldn't help it. He didn't say a word when she kicked me out on Christmas Eve, but now she was hurting? Let me tell you something. When a woman finally puts up a wall after a lifetime of being the bridge, they'll call it an attack. They'll say you've changed. They'll paint your boundaries as cruelty. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe them. I almost did. Until April. That's when the whispers started. A cousin texted me, "Hey, are you okay? Your mom said you're having a breakdown?" Another asked if I was in rehab. Someone else heard I'd been manipulated by an online cult. They weren't checking in, they were curious, gossip hungry, and they'd bought the story that I was unstable, not unavailable. So I responded to none of them. Instead, I started focusing on my business. I signed 3 new property contracts in 2 months. I bought a cheap duplex out of state. I got up early and drank my coffee in total silence, no one demanding anything from me, no one yelling about a missing casserole dish or unpaid dental bill. And in that silence, I found a quiet kind of rage, not fire, not screaming, just this low, steady hum like static in your blood. Because now I could see it clearly, they never wanted me around for me. They wanted what I could do for them. Cook, clean, babysit, fund their lives. I was never the daughter. I was the maid with a convenient last name. When Mom emailed in May's subject line, "Help how poetic," saying the house was falling behind on the mortgage, and could I lend some money just to tide us over, I stared at it for a full hour. I didn't reply. I just marked it as spam. That's when it shifted. Suddenly, I was ungrateful, vengeful, cruel. They started tagging me in Facebook posts about family unity and lost sheep. I started getting weird anonymous DMs telling me to go fix things with your mom before it's too late. Too late for what? My inheritance? My place at the table where I was never fed? I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I bought a planner, a very expensive hardcover one. And on the first page, I wrote, "You owe them nothing, not even silence," because silence still meant control. And I wasn't theirs anymore. And the moment I realized that, that's when the real story began. It started with a storage unit. A random conversation with my cousin Danny, the only relative who didn't parrot whatever Mom said, led to it. She was over at my place one evening. We'd reconnected after years of polite nods at family functions, and she casually asked, "Did you ever clear out Grandma June's stuff? I remember she had all those heirlooms in that storage locker your mom kept paying for." I blinked. "What storage locker?" She looked at me like I was joking. "The one she rented in both your names? The one listed in the trust as your joint asset?" I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Let me rewind. When my grandmother died, she left behind a modest estate. Nothing extravagant, an old house, some savings, and apparently a trust meant for her grandchildren. All of us, not just Eric. At the time, I was grieving too hard to look closely. I trusted Mom when she said there wasn't much left after expenses. I believed her when she said she'd taken care of everything. Turns out she had just not in the way she claimed. The next day, I called every storage company in the county until I found it. It was there. A unit under my name and hers. The woman on the phone even confirmed it had been paid 6 months in advance, just 2 weeks before I was kicked out. I drove there that afternoon, heart pounding the whole way. The place was dusty, sterile, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones. The key still worked. I lifted the garage-style door and stood there, staring at a stack of boxes taller than me, labeled in my grandmother's handwriting. The first one I opened held photo albums, old ones. Me as a baby, laughing in a tub. My 5th birthday, my high school graduation, which my mom didn't attend because she had a migraine. All the proof that I was part of this family, no matter how much they tried to erase me. There were documents too. The original trust paperwork, bank statements, letters. And tucked inside one battered folder was a legal document naming me, not my mother, as the co-beneficiary of a savings account, an account I'd never seen. It took me 3 phone calls and a visit to a very confused bank manager to confirm. The account had existed. It had been closed 3 years prior, drained, by my mother. As the executor, she'd claimed emergency medical expenses for Eric, transferred the entire balance, nearly $80,000, into her own account. I stared at the paperwork like it was written in another language. $80,000. Gone. I'd been eating instant noodles while she was wiring herself my inheritance. That night, I sat on my floor, surrounded by the ghosts of my family in dusty Polaroids and legal betrayal, and felt something click inside me. This wasn't disappointment anymore. This was war. I didn't tell her I knew. I called Danny. She came over with wine and her lawyer friend, Melissa. Melissa read every page of the trust, the bank statements, the lease agreements on the family home. And then she looked at me and said, "Do you want to go scorched earth?" I didn't even hesitate. Over the next few weeks, we quietly assembled a paper trail. Every withdrawal, every wire transfer. We subpoenaed the bank logs, found the emails Mom had sent instructing Eric to keep quiet and just let me handle it. Turns out Eric knew the whole time. He hadn't just been the golden child. He was her co-conspirator. I wasn't just the black sheep, I was the scapegoat for their little empire of entitlement. The family home? He was supposed to take it over. That's why they never worried about me moving out. They assumed I'd just fade out of relevance while they handed the property to him under the table. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have guessed, is that while they were siphoning away my legacy, I'd been building my own. Every time they laughed at my little business, I'd been buying up foreclosures, renovating duplexes, flipping condos. I had savings, credit.a network, and more importantly, receipts. I filed a claim against the trust. Quietly, legally, with full documentation. I didn't call them, I didn't scream, I didn't even send a warning text. I let the paperwork arrive the way they'd always treated me, cold, formal, and devoid of apology. The final straw came 3 weeks later when Danny sent me a blurry screenshot from our aunt's Facebook post. A dinner party, a toast, Eric raising a glass to hard work, family, and legacy. My mother beaming beside him. Legacy, huh? You want legacy? Watch me burn it to the ground. The court date was set for a Tuesday. Rainy, cold, poetic, really. I showed up in a simple black coat and clean boots, hair pulled back. No dramatics, just precision. Melissa, my lawyer, and now probably one of my favorite people on earth, was already waiting inside with 3 copies of the trust violation file. It was thick, glorious. Mom didn't come. She sent her lawyer. He looked embarrassed the moment he saw the stack of evidence. Eric did show. Late. In a designer jacket he probably couldn't afford anymore. He didn't make eye contact, not once. Which was fine. Cowards rarely look up when the house they lit is finally on fire. The judge didn't need much convincing. Between the bank statements, forged notations on the trust, and Eric's text messages literally saying Mom said, "It's better if OP never finds out," it was open and shut. They had violated a legal trust. I was awarded restitution plus damages, a full 50% of the inheritance, including penalties. But that wasn't the best part. The house. Turns out, the deed had quietly slipped into default. They'd been behind on the mortgage for over a year. That help email Mom sent me back in May? It wasn't a plea. It was a last-ditch effort to keep the lights on. They were drowning, and I let them. Through a company I partially own, one of my LLCs. Thank you very much. I made a cash offer on the house the day it went into pre-foreclosure. It was accepted in 5 days. I didn't go to the house right away. I wanted to wait until the paperwork cleared. Until I had the keys. I got them on a Thursday morning in September. When I drove up to the house, my house now, it was eerie, familiar, quiet. Mom was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket. I didn't say a word. Just walked up, handed her the formal notice of ownership transfer, and waited. She opened it, read it, went pale. "You can't do this," she said. Quiet, small. I already did. Eric came out a few minutes later, yelling something about betrayal and lawsuits. I didn't even look at him. I just turned, walked back to my car, and drove off. I gave them 30 days. Legally. Generously. They tried to fight it. Publicly, of course. Facebook posts about greedy daughters and manipulated family legacies. One of my aunts DM'd me to say I was breaking your mother's heart. My response? She broke mine first. They tried smearing me through relatives, but guess what? Cousins started coming out of the woodwork. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd been ghosted, used, or cut off when they weren't useful anymore. My family tree was full of broken branches. I just happened to be the first one who grabbed an axe and stopped pretending it was fine. On day 29, I showed up with a locksmith and a sheriff. They were gone. Not a note, not a thank you. Just silence and the faint smell of old perfume and burned bridges. I walked through every room. My room. Still painted the same color I'd chosen when I was 13. The kitchen, where I'd once made pumpkin pie while Mom criticized my crust for being too rustic. The living room, where Eric once called me pathetic because I couldn't afford designer shoes. Now, I own the floorboards he used to stomp on. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood in the middle of the house they told me I'd never inherit and said out loud, "To no one, thanks for making it so easy." The press of it lifted off me like a second skin I didn't know I'd outgrown. For the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. The first morning in the house was so quiet it didn't feel real. I walked barefoot across the hardwood floor, coffee in hand, listening to nothing but the creak of boards under my toes and the hum of possibility. No demands, no guilt trips. No one asking me to make something, fix something, be something for them. Just me. I didn't rush to redecorate. I left the walls bare for a while. I wanted to feel what it was like to live in a space that wasn't screaming at me to perform, to people please, to bend. I took down the old family photos. Every one. I didn't throw them away, not yet. I boxed them up and stored them in the attic, like old clothes that don't fit anymore but once meant something. Maybe one day I'll burn them. Maybe I won't. The truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. They tried crawling back. Eric emailed me first. A full page of excuses disguised as apologies. I was just doing what Mom said. I didn't think you'd care about the trust. We're still siblings at the end of the day. I left him on read. Then came the birthday card from Mom. Handwritten. No return address. It said, "We all make mistakes. I hope you'll find your way back to us." As if I was the one who'd lost her way. I didn't reply. Instead, I donated to a domestic violence shelter in her name and forwarded the card to my lawyer, just in case she ever tried to claim she didn't know how to reach me. Peace didn't arrive in a dramatic gust. It came slowly, like sunlight sneaking in through a crack in the blinds. I started planting a garden, took long walks without checking my phone. I made dinner for myself, just myself, for the first time in my adult life. And it tasted like freedom. I renovated the kitchen by spring, not for resale, for me. I painted the cabinets a soft sea glass green, the kind my mother would have hated. I hung prints from artists she'd call weird and depressing. Every inch of this place became a reclamation. The neighbors who used to pretend not to see me started waving again. One of them, a sweet woman named Janine, brought over banana bread and said, "It's so nice to see the place with a bit of life again." I smiled. It was alive. Finally, people ask me now if I miss them. What they really mean is, "Don't you feel guilty for choosing yourself?" And to that I say, no. Because I gave them years, I gave them money, I gave them forgiveness they never earned. I bent over backwards so far, my spine forgot what straight felt like. Now I'm whole. Danny visits often. She calls the house the Empire, and we laugh like kids who finally got the joke. Sometimes we sit on the porch with wine and she'll ask, "Do you think they regret it?" And I always say the same thing, "I hope so." But I don't need them to. Because the real revenge wasn't the house, or the court win, or the silence. It was becoming someone who didn't need their validation anymore. I no longer flinch when I hear my name. I no longer crave their praise like oxygen. And I don't walk on eggshells. I walk on tile I paid for, in a home I rebuilt from the ashes they left behind. They said I was heartless. But for once, I put my heart first, and I've never felt more whole. Story 2, as I celebrated my baby shower at 7 months pregnant, I never imagined that something so terrible would occur. My own mom. Yes, I slipped and fell into the pool after my mother gave me a really strong punch in my pregnant abdomen. I gasped for oxygen as I fought to keep above the cold, heavy water. Then all of a sudden, I began to shake in panic as I stared down at my growing tummy. "Hi there, I'm Lena, and I'm 30 years old." I would have laughed incredulously if someone had told me years ago that I would be married to a man who genuinely loves me, living in a quiet Boston townhouse, and expecting our first child. But here I am, standing in front of my bedroom mirror, 7 months pregnant, smoothing out my flowy pregnant dress's gentle creases. I felt a tiny flutter within, so I put my palm over my belly and grinned. Jack, our little son, has started moving more lately. It was a kick at times, a leisurely, sweeping action at other times. Every motion served as a reminder that something lovely was developing within me. For a little while, everything seemed calm and normal as the sunshine streamed through our window. My husband, Ryan, entered the room with a steaming cup of tea and gave me a cheek kiss in honor of the Queen and the little prince while grinning. Even when I felt like my heart was in knots, he had a knack of making me feel peaceful. I couldn't deny the weight I felt in my gut, even at this peaceful moment. In actuality, my mother, Janet, and sister Sophia had always caused me anxiety, and now that my baby shower was only a few days away, their negativity was returning like a shadow. I perched on the side of the bed and drank some tea. Through college, a challenging real estate job, and years of self-doubt brought on by growing up in a household where I was never enough, I had worked hard for this life. I had created something solid and genuine. I was protected, loved, and now hopeful. However, I felt in my heart that the peace would not last. Not with Janet in the picture. Ryan shouted out to me while I was folding baby clothing in the nursery. "Your mother is on the phone, Lena. I got a chill just listening to those words." Ryan held out the phone with a worried expression as I hesitated for a moment, took a big breath, and moved into the hallway. I took it from him and feigned a grin. "Hello, Mother." When she desired control, her voice was as straight and crisp as ever. "I need to discuss your baby shower with you, Lena. I've made some adjustments with Sophia. The location has been rescheduled to the Bloomfield Club. It's more sophisticated than the little bistro you chose. I've booked the reservation already." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "I've already made a deal with Riverside Cafe, Mom. My pals are familiar with the location. I'm covering the cost myself," she snapped. "Oh, please. The cancellation cost will be covered by me. In addition, the outfit you choose appears to be a curtain. Sophia found you a beautiful one, more elegant and sophisticated." My stomach constricted. I was 7 months along in my pregnancy. My physique was evolving. My feelings were tense. And here she was, disparaging all of my preparations for my own party. Ryan was staring from the doorway when I turned to face him. He took a step nearer and touched my back tenderly. I was able to talk because of that warmth. "Ryan, Mom, and I have already decided everything. We want the shower to be a reflection of this momentous occasion for us. We're not changing a thing." The person on the other end paused. Then she gave a quick exhale. "This is how you are all the time. Never pay attention. Never consider the suffering Sophia endures. Given that she is unable to conceive, can you imagine what it must be like for her to see you pregnant?" My throat constricted. My pregnancy was not a crime, but I had spent years trying to be kind to my sister. "No one was intended to be harmed," I responded softly. "I'm not trying to harm Sophia. This is a celebration, though. My festivity." For once, anger made her voice waver. "How self-centered of you." Ryan quietly removed the phone from my grasp before I could reply. "Janet," he firmly said, "Lena needs to sleep. The baby shower will go according to schedule. You have the freedom to choose not to go." And that's it. He ended the call. Shaking, the first took a seat on the couch. My eyes filled with tears. Why is she unable to simply be pleased for me? I was dragged into Ryan's arms as he sat next to me. Because my love will never be conditional, but hers is. My father, Frank, called later that night. As usual, his tone was soft, even contrite. "I'm sad to hear about your mother, Lena. The only thing she's worried about is you." My chuckle was empty. "You've said it since I was 12, Dad." "There's no cause for fear, it's command." On the other end, there was stillness. Then he spoke something gentle. "I am going to the shower. I'll also bring Sophia and your mother. Try not to worry. Perhaps things will be different this time." However, I was aware. Sunlight was pouring through the windows of our bedroom on the morning of the baby shower. For a brief period, it seemed like a gorgeous spring day as birds sang outside. On the inside, though, I was anxious. It was about what may happen if my mother and sister turn there, not about the guests, food, or decor. Ryan grinned as he entered with my sneakers. "How does my beloved mother feel?" I put a palm to my round tummy and said that I was nervous. "All I want is for today to go well for once. In my personal life, I want to feel like I belong." He assisted me in putting on my shoes while kneeling in front of me. Lena, you do belong. Now is your time, and I will always be at your side, no matter what. He helped me stand up and kiss my hand. As though to remind me, I felt the baby shift softly inside of me. Mom is the reason I'm here. When we got to Riverside Cafe at midday, it had been turned into a delicate paradise with pastel balloons, floral arrangements, and blue ribbons. A lovely pool with sunshine dancing on the water was visible from the outside patio. Olivia, my closest friend, who had planned everything, gave me a strong embrace when she saw me. "You look stunning," she muttered. "Everything is prepared. Just take a deep breath and savor the moment." I made an effort to grin. I'm making an effort. Liv, really? I started to unwind as visitors started to arrive. My real estate office colleagues arrived with presents wrapped in white and blue. The set was complemented by old college buddies who chuckled. I felt normal for the first time in weeks. Ryan remained nearby, observing me intently. Leaning forward, he murmured, "Are you all right?" I gave a nod. "Just, if Sophia and Mom arrive." Make a vow to notify me immediately. A lock of hair was brushed behind my ear by him. I'll take care of things if they go wrong. I swear. I had just started to lower my defenses. There was silence at the doorway. I pivoted, and there they were. Janet. My mom walked in like she was the honored guest. She was dressed in a fiery crimson gown that gleamed in the sunlight. Totally unsuitable for a baby shower. She held her head high. Her expression was blank. Frank, my father, in his customary reserved manner, trailed after, shoulders hunched a little. Then my sister Sophia arrived, dressed in a form-fitting black outfit that was obviously designed to flaunt her slender figure. She had flawlessly curled hair. She flashed me a smile that stopped short of her eyes when our gazes met. "Lena, congratulations." Sweetly, she said. "Throwing a gathering in such a laid-back setting is quite typical of you." I made an effort to grin. "I appreciate you coming, Sophia, as well as Mom." "Dad!" Janet scanned me from head to toe with a chilly gaze. She spoke in a harsh yet quiet voice. "Wouldn't a larger dress have been an option? That belly is too much." I took a deep breath. "It's a pregnancy dress, Mom. I'm expecting a child." Obviously, she stated aloud, causing the other guests to look at her. "Being the center of attention has always been a favorite of yours." Olivia intervened like a shield before I could reply. She spoke in a clear, calm voice. "Harris, Mr. and Mrs. Welcome, Sophia. Would you want anything to drink?" Once more, Olivia's grace saved me. Ryan approached me and put his arm around me tenderly. "Are you all right?" he muttered. My fingers shook a little as I nodded. "Just let's get this over with," I said, on the outside. The celebration went ahead without incident. Visitors mixed. Presents were set out on the table, but in the terrace's corner. Janet gulped champagne glass after glass. Her hawk-like gaze was riveted on me. Sophia grinned when chatting with my pals. However, there was something phony and calculating about her demeanor. She was sharing this with one of my colleagues. Lena has always had a caring personality. My career has always been my primary priority. I tightened my jaw. That was untrue. Life hadn't worked out for Sophia, who had always wanted a family, and now it was me who was being punished. I realized that this storm was not yet done, so I maintained my composure. I made an effort to concentrate on the embellishments. Olivia had put a lot of effort into the delicate white and blue. The little baby onesies that hung above the tables like garlands and the match. Laughter resounded in the background as a gentle wind blew across the patio. However, Janet's gaze was still piercing my back like a chilly needle. She watched me every time I turned a little. Her lips was clenched as she refilled her champagne glass. Sophia, too. Yes, she was doing a good job in the role. Too big of a smile, talking like she belonged in talks with my coworkers and laughing a bit too loudly. She went up to my buddy Jennifer and started discussing our early years. Lena was usually so serious that she had her nose in a book. She chuckled. I was the more animated one. However, after meeting Ryan, she has undergone significant transformation. She has changed. Jennifer smiled politely, but I could see she was looking to me for assistance. I approached them and put a gentle touch on Jennifer's arm. I'm sorry, Jen, but might I use you for a moment? She nodded courteously to Sophia and hurried after me to the drinks table. She's overly passionate. When we were alone, Jennifer murmured. You don't know. I smiled tightly in response. Janet was drinking her third glass of champagne at the time. Her voice was beginning to raise, and her eyes were glassy. When Frank tried to soothe her, she shrugged off his hand after laughing too loudly at something he said. "She's losing her mind." As she walked past, Olivia murmured to me, "Take caution." I gave a nod. I recognized the expression in my mom's eyes. I had witnessed it far too often. Olivia collected everyone and clapped her hands a few moments later. "Let's play a game, everyone. It's known as Mother to Be Advice. Lena will attempt to determine who wrote each of the parenting tips you all wrote." The guests gathered for a while and laughed. I didn't even get to read the first card before I picked it up, but I was smiling and leaning into Ryan's shoulder. Janet got to her feet, a little unsteadily. Her voice reverberated across the assembly. "I also have some advice." The laughter abruptly stopped. She raised her glass and stated, "Children are born to punish their parents. Lena, isn't that correct?" There was utter silence in the room. In my ears, my heart thumped. Ryan got up next to me. "Miss S. Harris," he stated firmly. "Perhaps this isn't the ideal moment." Janet ignored his calm tone and turned to face him. "Silence, please. Everything has been damaged by you. Even so, is that baby yours?" The audience echoed with gasps. My knees became weak. "What?" "Stunned," I muttered. Janet slurred her speech as she laughed. "Lena, you had to be the star all the time, didn't you? Sophia has always been pushed into the background since you were a young child. Now that she is unable to conceive, you are flaunting yourself like way." I couldn't hear Sophia whispering anything in her mother's ear as she approached from behind. Even more rage distorted Janet's face. "I'm sick of acting," she spat. "Your drama has always been the center of this household." With a pallid face, Frank rose from his chair. "Janet, that's sufficient." She refused to quit, though. Ryan stepped in front of us once more. "If you don't stop, I'll contact security." Janet lost her temper at that point. She pushed Ryan out of her way and came charging at me. She had wild, inebriated, angry, and utterly insane eyes. "It was wrong for you to be born." She let out a scream. She then hit me in the gut with all the strength she possessed. The breath left my lungs in a hurry. Gasping, the first staggered backward and flung my hands to my stomach. I thought I was out of breath. The agony was sudden and intense, and the next thing I knew, I was falling as my foot slipped near the pool's edge. 7 months pregnant, drenched, lightheaded, and in a panic. I screamed within as I plummeted into the sea. For a moment, the icy water engulfed me completely. There was silence. The roar of water filling my ears muted the yelling, the gasps, and most importantly, the turmoil. My garment was now knotted around my legs, thick and damp. I kicked out of impulse, but my mind was racing with fear. The infant was all I could think about. "Please, Jack, not my child." My arms pushed through the weight of my sopping garments as I struggled upward. However, it seemed as though I was traveling slowly. My chest became more constricted. I had to breathe. I required assistance. I heard voices, muffled and weak, above the surface. The roar was abruptly broken by a scream. "Lena!" someone yelled. "God, Lena!" At the pool's edge, I noticed hands in motion. 2 of the male visitors rushed up to assist. Then I watched Ryan jump into the pool without hesitation, like a glimmer of light piercing the terror. In a matter of seconds, his arms were around me. "I've got you." Breathless but steady, he muttered. "You're all right. I've got you." As Gus helped hoist me out, he tugged me toward the pool's edge. I fell to the ground, shaking and wheezing, water running down my body. My hands instantly went to my tummy as my garment clung to me like a second skin. "I'm not sure whether he's all right." My voice trembled as I whispered. "You'll be okay, Ryan, sweetheart." Cradling me in his arms, he said, "Hold on." Frank stood close by, stunned. His gaze shifted between Janet, who was now standing still with her champagne glass in hand and a pale face, and me, who was soaking and trembling. Sophia, perhaps, is the most eerie aspect. She crossed her arms and had a little smile on her lips as she stood a few paces behind her mother. She remained silent. She remained still. She did nothing except observe. Then an unforeseen event occurred. Frank took his phone out of his pocket and phoned 911. Despite his calmness, his voice was powerful. "It's Frank Harris. at Riverside Cafe. I need cops and an ambulance." My 7-month pregnant daughter's mother just shoved her into a swimming pool and violently abused her. Complications are being looked at. Gasps rose throughout the deck. Some of the visitors started sobbing in private. Others gaped in shock. "Janet." Frank turned to his wife and spoke. "At last you have overreached yourself." He interrupted her as she opened her mouth. "No, not now. No more." Only a few minutes later, in the distance, sirens cried out. The cafe's walls were decorated with flashing blue and red lights. A paramedic on a stretcher hurried in. As they helped me up and put a shawl around my shoulders, their words were gentle yet frantic. One of them softly placed a stethoscope to my abdomen. "There is a heartbeat," he stated. "You are currently being sent to the hospital for close supervision." Ryan held my hand the entire time we were in the ambulance. Still numb, I put my head on his shoulder and gazed up at the ceiling. "Ryan," all I could mutter was that she had punched me. I was punched by her, as well as the infant. "I know," he responded in a low, angry voice. "It will cost her money. She will make the payment, I promise." Janet was handcuffed by police officers in front of the attendees back at the venue. The officer responded, "You are under arrest for assaulting a pregnant woman. The right to silence is yours." When questioned, Sophia attempted to defend her mother. She said it was only an accident. My mother was intoxicated. She had no intention of hurting anyone. One officer, however, gave her a stern look. "After your sister was punched and fell into the pool, several visitors noticed you grinning. A complicity investigation is underway against you. Please be cooperative." Justice had started for the first time in my life, and Sophia's smile vanished in an instant. The only sound in the hospital room was the steady beep of the fetal monitor next to me. My body hurt from the hit, and my hair was still wet, the astonishment and the terror. However, I let out a little sigh of relief as I glanced at the screen and watched my baby boy's heartbeat flicker steadily. "He's all right," I muttered. Ryan, who was seated beside my bed, took my hand and gave her a tender kiss. "Both of you survived. Lena, you're safe now." My eyes filled with tears. Not only out of relief, but also after years of suppressed suffering, breaking free at last. I was afraid I might lose him. She simply stood there, my own mom. At first, he didn't answer, just held my hand. He went on to say that she had crossed an unbreakable boundary. A gentle knock on the door was heard. After a moment, slowly it opened, and Frank entered. In a single afternoon, he appeared to have aged 10 years. His gaze were steady, yet his shoulders were hunched. "Could I enter?" he inquired. Ryan gave me a glance. I nodded slightly. Frank took a seat across from us in silence. Just for a second, he was speechless. Then his voice broke and sounded low. "I apologize, Lena. Years ago, I ought to have stopped her. I ought to have kept you safe." I remained mute, observing the guy who had previously watched in silence, while my mother eroded my self-esteem and soul. Now, however, he looked different now, weary, sincere. I told what he mentioned about her actions to the police. "How long has it been going on?" "Janet was placed under arrest. She will be held overnight. Tomorrow, she will appear in court. According to the authorities, there is sufficient evidence to prosecute her with criminal assault." Ryan stood up a little. "She is deserving of the entire charge." Frank gave a nod. "I concur." And he paused. "Lena, I've already begun the divorce filing procedure." My eyes got big. I never thought my father would say those things. I waited too long. I feigned not to notice. However, I witnessed her hitting her own pregnant daughter in the stomach and then pushing her into a swimming pool today. And I noticed Sophia grinning while doing nothing. "Sophia?" I muttered. "What is going on with her? They're questioning her. A restraining order could be issued, but they might not press charges. You are quite entitled to request one." I placed my hands over my tummy and peered down at it, as though in response to my speech, Jake made a slight movement within. "My feelings. I wish to keep him safe," I said quietly. "I will never again allow one of them to be close to us." Frank took a folded piece of paper out of his pocket. "At the police station, I had a consultation with a lawyer. I have already consented to restraining orders against Sophia and Janet, and I'll back you if you decide to pursue more legal action. I fixed my gaze on the man who used to turn away. Perhaps he had been awakened by guilt. Perhaps it was simply too late to act like that. "Thank you," I said. At last, he got up and smiled at me wearily. "I will return for the hearing tomorrow. Just concentrate on the baby and getting healthier." I felt the weight of all that had transpired as he walked away, leaning back into the cushions. However, behind that, I was unaware of another growing power. In my life, for the first time, I wasn't only getting by, I was going to defend myself. Ryan was accompanying me as I entered a silent-based courtroom 3 days later. I was walking more slowly than normal. My body is still healing, but my heartbeat is determined and steady. Justice wasn't the only issue here. It was about establishing limits for my son, myself, and the type of future I wished to safeguard. Janet wore a loose-fitting shirt and simple gray trousers when she sat at the defendant's table. She had a pallid face. She has empty eyes. The haughty, pretentious lady who had walked into my baby shower as if it were her own event was no longer there. She appeared smaller, older, and much more fragile. However, I had no sympathy for her. Sophia sat a few feet away from her, arms crossed, straightforward, eyes locked. She had lost her smile. Behind us sat Frank, a quiet yet steady presence. For the first time in my life, Dad had already left the family home and filed for divorce 2 days prior. He had chosen the truth over keeping quiet. The hearing was called to order by the judge, a shrewd lady with steady eyes and a firm voice. The case was presented by the prosecutor: assault on an expectant mother, inconsiderate hazard, disruption of a private function by the public. Witness testimony followed. Olivia was the first to speak, detailing her exact observations. The fall, the punch, how hard I fought in the sea. Then, as I plummeted, a rush of wind verified that Sophia had smiled. Then I mounted the stand, and it was my turn. Jake moved gently inside of me, as though to tell me that he was still there and that I wanted him to remain strong. My mother hit me in the stomach when I was 7 months pregnant. My voice was clear as I spoke. She was upset, intoxicated. However, she had previously attempted to manipulate or embarrass me. She had just revealed her true self to the world for the first time. I stopped. My baby would not have survived if it weren't for my husband and the guests who rescued me from the sea, and for no other reason than to rejoice in the life I was bringing into the world. Janet lowered her head when I was done. However, I didn't give a damn whether she was truly ashamed. It was too late. The judge looked at her. "Miss Harris, what do you have to say?" Despite opening her mouth, Janet remained silent. She had no resistance for once. Without hesitation, the judge rendered her decision: state jail for 4 years. No possibility of early parole. Therapy for anger control is required. Permanent enforcement of the restraining order. She was not allowed to get in touch with Jack or me at all. Although Sophia was not charged with a crime, she was subject to a civil restraining order with instant effect when we were leaving the courthouse. "It's over," Ryan said as he put his arm around me. "No." Silently, I said. "It's only the beginning." The last 2 months were a haze of recuperation, introspection, and planning. The recollections persisted even after the bruises subsided. I had glimpses of them, Janet's fist rushing for my abdomen. I'm being swallowed completely by the frigid water, the sneer of Sophia in the background. But those times, I was no longer a hostage. I was back in charge. The rope that connected me to agony has been severed. And now, with a surge of contractions, stood in the maternity ward and holding Ryan's hand. I was prepared to give birth to my son. Time is almost here. The nurse smiled calmly as she spoke. "Lena, you're completely dilated. A couple more shoves." My temples were plastered with sweat. I clenched my fingers around Ryan's hand. He kissed my forehead and smoothed back my wet hair. "You're capable. I've never met a stronger lady than you." I inhaled deeply before falling. I pushed after that. The sound reached me 10 minutes later. I had been anticipating my infant's cries for months. My heart burst. It's a boy. The infant boy was declared healthy by the doctor. He was put on my chest, and the entire world vanished for an instant. He had warm, velvety skin. He sobbed in anger at this unfamiliar new location. His eyes clenched shut, and his small fingers curled tightly. I touched his little cheek and chuckled through tears. "Hello, Jack," I muttered. "I've been waiting my entire life to meet you, and I'm your mother." With tears in his eyes, Ryan drew closer. "Hello, tiny one. We have you now." Ryan stood guard while the nurse took Jack to clean and bandage him. Physically weary but emotionally full in a manner I never knew was possible, I reclined against the cushions. Now that we were alive, we could start over. Little Jack crept awkwardly toward the sliding glass doors that went out to the backyard as the light warmed the hardwood flooring of our new house via the kitchen window. He was 10 months old and already full of curiosity, with sweet chuckles resonating throughout the home and pudgy legs that wobbled. I murmured, "Come on, little explorer," and walked up to embrace him. I chuckled as his small hands sought for my jewelry. Not at all. No food, my friend. The aroma of cooked veggies wafted in from the terrace behind me. While flipping burgers and drinking lemonade, Ryan stood at the grill. He had little baby handprints on his t-shirt. It was decorated this morning by Jack. "The food is nearly ready." With the spatula raised in the air like a proud father, Ryan called. The trial had altered life. We had left the metropolis and relocated to a more sedate area where nobody was aware of our history. Here, the air was more tranquil. There was no strain in the stillness. Birdsong, infant laughing, and late-night murmurs beneath cozy blankets filled the air. My father, Frank, came to see us every few weeks. As anticipated, he had sold the old house and relocated to Arizona. He always brought Jack a carved wooden toy when he arrived. Once still and unresponsive, his hands suddenly formed blocks, trains, and animals, presents for the grandchild he vowed to keep safe. He was making a subtle effort. He was compensating for lost years. I got a letter in the mail one day. Sophia sent it. She wrote in the same style, clean and under control inside. She said she was sorry. She expressed sorrow for not preventing her mother. Between the lines, not doing more, not defending me, I sensed another sensation, a yearning to re-enter my life, a familiar manipulation. Without responding, I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. There's a reason why certain doors remain closed. I handed Jack outside to Ryan when he started to wriggle in my arms. Jack nibbled on a teething ring and kicked at the wind as we sat together on a comfortable blanket spread out on the grass. A few minutes later, Olivia came over, grinning broadly and carrying a fruit tart. I brought baby cuddles and dessert. We chuckled. She was no longer only her best friend. She was a relative. People who selected me for who I am, not for what I provided them or how I made them seem, were all around us as we sat in the sun. I came to a realization. The cycle was broken by me. I would raise Jack in a safe, respectful, and loving environment. In order to feel powerful, I would never make him feel tiny. I knew this was home when I turned to face Ryan and he put his hand on mine. "Family," I spoke out loud, seeing Jack turn over on his back, staring at the clouds, "is more than simply blood. It matters who arrives, who stays, and who encourages you. Squeeze my hand, Ryan, and we'll make sure Jack is aware of it at all times." As Jack's quiet chuckle reverberated like melody and the air blew across the grass, I grinned. At last, we were entire and free. We appreciate you viewing this content. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. For more impactful and poignant stories, remember to subscribe and share your opinions in the comments section. We appreciate your support, which enables us to continue releasing weekly material that is inspired by real life. Story 3. As I arrived at my parents' place, I prepared myself in my mind for yet another family meal. I wasn't against meeting my family, but there was always that underlying tension that I couldn't quite get rid of, and they have been happening more often lately. I'm Jasmine, and I've made a respectable life for myself at the age of 32. At a mid-sized company, I handle software projects, and although my hours can be lengthy, I am paid well. I've always been self-reliant and career-focused, which occasionally feels like a crime in my family's eyes. I was making my way to the front entrance. The pandemonium within was immediately audible to me. The children of my sister Emma were yelling uncontrollably. Emma is 35 years old, married to Rick, and has 2 children, Lily, age 5, and Tyler, age 7. Don't get me wrong, these kids are adorable, but they're also crazy. As far as I can tell, Emma's philosophy of natural parenting is letting children do anything they want. Jazzy shrieked at Tyler as he ran down the corridor and almost knocked me over. I steadied myself and said, "Hey, buddy, slow down a little, perhaps." Emma came waving dismissively from the kitchen. She warned the children to be careful, but it was obvious from her tone that she didn't expect them to pay attention. "Hello, sister." I was going to reply until I saw how well dressed she was. Emma had her hair done and was dressed in a navy blue party dress, perfect at our folks' place for a Sunday supper. It was strange. "You look good, though. What's the event?" I hugged her briefly and asked. She simply grinned enigmatically. "No cause. Isn't it possible for a girl to dress up?" When I walked in, Rick was on the couch, hardly glancing up as he browsed through his phone. He whispered, "Hey, Jasmine." Mom wiped her hands on her apron as she hurried out of the kitchen. Her jitters appeared out of the ordinary. Dad was preoccupied as he arranged the table. He kissed me on the cheek and hurried back to set the silverware, saying, "Hello, sweetheart. Just so." There was obviously a problem. My folks were acting strangely. Rick kept staring at Emma when they thought I wasn't looking, and Emma was dressed as though she was attending an awards ceremony. I took a seat at the table and observed the activity going on all around me. One could feel the tension in the air. Mom startled as if she had been surprised when she dropped a serving spoon. Dad cleared his throat repeatedly. Emma continued to straighten her outfit while examining her image in the wall-mounted, ornamental mirror. Dinner was served at last. Mom's pot roast, complete with accompaniments. Despite being a family favorite, the lunch was oddly silent, and everyone's responses to my efforts at conversation were brief and preoccupied. Rick and Emma were exchanging knowing glances once more. Since the children were the only ones behaving normally, they were creating a mess and disobeying all orders to eat healthily. When dessert was done, Mom didn't even bother to move the store-bought cheesecake on one of her pretty dishes. Dad cleared his throat loudly all of a sudden. His voice louder than normal, he declared before anyone left. "I have a big announcement to share with your mom." Emma stood up and smoothed her clothing. Rick wrapped her in his arm. Ignorant. The children kept playing with their supper. "Will you grab the folder, Linda?" Dad asked Mom. Mom sprung to her feet and ran to the study. When she came back, she placed a manila folder on the table with care. My stomach grew constricted. What was happening? I looked at Emma, who was struggling to conceal her delight. It was obvious to her and Rick what was about to happen. Mom inhaled deeply and glanced around the table. "Last week, your father and I went to see our lawyer," she said. "We've been considering the future, and it's critical to have things organized at our age." Dad gave a serious nod. "A new will has been drafted by us." My heart rate increased. The elegant meal and everyone's odd conduct were explained by this. However, why did Emma and Rick appear to be aware of it beforehand? Mom went on, her voice quivering a little with what seemed like practiced passion. "We've made the decision to give Emma this house and everything in it." The remarks were like a kick to the stomach. Emma pretended to wipe away her tears while I sat there motionless. Her voice cracked as she continued, "Mom, Dad, I'm not sure what I did to merit this recognition." I was startled out of my daze by it. How could she have earned it? I was curious about that. "Yes," I replied, sounding harder than I meant to. "That's something I'd also like to know. What specifically did Emma do to merit all of this?" I waved in the direction of the home for which I had been making mortgage payments for the previous 3 years. The memories came flooding back with clarity. 3 years ago, my parents made a frantic phone call. Mom sobbed as she said their house will be taken by the bank. After Dad's knee surgery, they faced a mountain of medical expenses and were unable to pay their mortgage. They rejected my suggestion that they approach Emma for assistance right now. She needs to take care of her 2 kids. They stated she couldn't assist us. So I took the initiative. I postponed my intentions to purchase my own property. For the past 3 years, I have been covering their $2,400 monthly mortgage, utilities, and any unexpected costs that arose when their car broke down or the water heater needed to be replaced. Emma and her family have been frequent visitors here for a long time. Never once did you offer to assist out monetarily, or even with basic chores like dishwashing, following these family meals. Everything made obvious now. The odd conduct, Emma's attire, and the covert grins she and Rick share. They were aware of this news. They had been anticipating it. My parents' features flushed red with rage as they considered my query. With the exception of the background sound of Tyler and Lily continuing to play with their dessert, the dining room became quiet. "You dare!" At last, Mom spoke in a low, menacing voice, "following everything that we have done for you." Dad hit the table with a smash. "Jasmine, you had a duty to assist us. Daughters act in this way. Furthermore, we are quite free to bequeath our property to anyone we like." Their response left me speechless. Required. Did they see the $2,400 I sent them every month that way? Not as a gesture of affection or sacrifice, but as a duty. "What do you know?" Emma interrupted, her artificial tears abruptly drying up. "Jasmine, I didn't think you would be so greedy. You're behaving like a swindler." With a worried expression that made me want to hurl my water in his face, Rick nodded next to her. "It's simple for you," Emma said, her tone brimming with piety. "You're not dating. You are a childless couple. What it's like to raise 2 children and invest every penny in their future is beyond your comprehension. There are those of us who have real obligations." I glanced at their expressions around the table. With unmasked rage, my parents were looking at me. Emma was grinning triumphantly, and she wasn't even attempting to conceal it. Rick appeared arrogant and was presumably already figuring out how much they might receive for the house if they sold it. That was it, the last straw. Without uttering a single word, I got up and left the table. I picked up my belongings from the guest room, where I had left my jacket and handbag, and made my way to the front door. I climbed into my vehicle and drove off. My knuckles became white as my hands tightened their grasp on the driving wheel. I had to stop after traveling around 5 kilometers. As the full impact of what had just transpired hit me, tears clouded my eyes. I just sat there crying after parking at the curb. I had been assisting them for 3 years. Due to my meticulous planning to ensure my parents were taken care of, I had to forgo 3 years of vacations, put off buying a home of my own, and decline drinks with coworkers after work. They viewed me as nothing more than an ATM during that entire period. I cried for what seemed like an hour, and then I got back on the road. But I had to stop again because the fury was making me tremble so much. I got the strongest tea they had and sat at a booth in the corner, trying to relax, this time at a 24-hour diner. It was almost late when I arrived to my flat. Despite my exhaustion, I was wired to sleep. In order to avoid seeing the precise amount I had been spending on my parents, I had been avoiding opening my laptop and logging into my banking app for the past 3 years. I made a spreadsheet and carefully recorded each payment as I looked through my transaction history. $86,400 was spent on the mortgage alone. Then, there were the property taxes I had paid last year when they said they were short, the auto repairs, the new water heater, and the utility bills. I felt terrible when I saw the final total, $103,782. More than $100,000 donated to folks who lacked the grace to express gratitude was something I would never witness again. With a feeling of both loss and release, I gazed at the next planned payment, which was due in 2 weeks. I take that off. I banned their phone numbers after that. For the first time in years, I took a hot shower, got myself a cup of mint tea, and went to bed. I just worried about myself while I slept. There was beautiful silence for the following 2 weeks. Mom didn't call to beg me to pay for an unforeseen bill. Emma didn't email me to say how busy she was with the kids or to suggest that I should help Mom with anything. Simply silent. I immersed myself into my job, and I requested for 2 weeks off without thinking when my manager said she had trouble convincing people to take their vacation days. I was surprised when she consented right away. "Jasmine," she added, "you haven't taken more than a long weekend in 3 years. You're past due." I made travel plans to Florida that evening. A rental vehicle, a hotel on the beach, and nothing planned but to unwind. I was determined to make the most of my first genuine holiday in years. I was reviewing my packing list the day before my departure to make sure I hadn't missed anything. My phone began to buzz. When I looked at it, my mother's name appeared on the screen. After a week, not out of forgiveness, but rather to find out if there was a real emergency, I unlocked her number. I choose to disregard it. She kept calling. Then Dad called. Next, Emma. "Let's go back to Mom." It was unrelenting. What did I ultimately pick up after around 20 calls? Already regretting my choice, I lost my temper. The money is nowhere to be found," Mom yelled without even saying hi. "The bank called to remind us that the mortgage payment was due yesterday. Did you not send the money?" I was unable to resist. I chuckled. It was almost astonishing how bold it was. "Why is it so funny?" Mom insisted. "Jasmine, this is serious. The money must be sent immediately." "Let me clarify," I responded, continuing to laugh incredulously. "You expect me to continue paying for the home even if you give it to Emma in your will. Are you serious now?" "This is serious," she shouted. "The house can be lost." "That is no longer an issue for me," I remarked, perplexed as to why I felt Emma now owned the house. "Let her pay for it then." "How could you be so self-centered?" A cry emerged in Mom's voice, "Following everything that we have done for you. Jasmine, this is your family's responsibility." "No," I said, "it's not. I owe it to myself to stop allowing you to exploit me. The home goes to Emma. Emma is able to cover the mortgage. I'm finished." After hanging up, I switched off my phone entirely. I went to bed early after finishing my packing. At 7 a.m., I had my flight, and I didn't want my first day of vacation to be spent exhausted. I was happier than I had been in years when I boarded my trip to Florida the next morning. I was going to spend 2 wonderful weeks thinking just about the sun, the waves in the ocean, and the next book I should read. The sunlight in Florida was just what I needed. After checking into my hotel near the beach, I quickly changed into my bikini and threw my luggage on the bed. I had a fruity drink in my hand and my toes in the beach within an hour of arrival. However, my family wasn't prepared for me to be at peace. I ignored the calls and texts that kept buzzing on my phone. Some part of me wanted to hear what they had to say, but I should have blocked them. Like seeing a slow-motion automobile wreck. "The bank phoned again, Mom. That money is urgently needed." "Dad, your mom is really unhappy. Give us a call right now." "How could you harm our parents like way, Emma? Their house will be taken away from them." Emma escalated when no one responded to her texts. "I have 2 kids. The mortgage is beyond my means. It must be paid. You are accountable for it." The couple on the beach terrace next to mine were startled when I burst out laughing at that last one. I made the decision to block them all once more and spend the next few days concentrating on my vacation. For 3 years, I lived the life I had been denying myself. I slept in as late as I wanted, ate at nice restaurants without checking the prices, went on a sunset cruise, and went swimming in the ocean. I didn't think twice about sharing the selfies I took at local landmarks and on the beach on social media. A huge error. The comments began to show up on my photos by the 4th day of my vacation. "How can you be having fun, Mom, knowing that we're going to lose our house? So unkind." "Emma, having no obligations while your family suffers must be pleasant. I hope you feel good about yourself." Rick, every night your sister sobs. Concerned about your parents? Enjoy your self-centered holiday, however. Something inside of me snapped, even though I should have removed the remarks and gone on. I uploaded a photo of myself with a stunning sunset in the background and said, "First vacation in 3 years." Since I was sick of playing the bad guy in their tale, I paid my parents $2,000 and $400 a month for the years. At that point, chaos ensued. Family members I hadn't spoken to in a long time began to leave comments, inquiring as to what was happening. "What is this about you paying your parents' mortgage?" My cousin Alicia sent me a private message, and it was something Linda had never said before. Anyone could get a response from me. I received a fresh notice on my phone. The family WhatsApp group has deleted me. I texted my cousin Alicia out of curiosity to find out what was going on in the group. I got screenshots from her. A lengthy note had been placed by my mother. "In our hour of need, our daughter Jasmine has deserted us. She has abandoned us out of envy for her sister, despite all we have done for her, including raising and supporting her. Her harshness might cost us our house. Please offer up prayers for us at this trying time." It made my blood boil. When they were the ones who had taken advantage of me for years and then intended to give everything to Emma, they were playing the victim and painting me as the bad guy. I made the decision that it was time to reveal the truth. I went to my social media profile and wrote something that would be seen by all of my family members. I have to correct the record. My parents phoned me 3 years ago to let me know they were having financial difficulties and would have to give up their home. Since I took over, I have been covering their $2,400 monthly mortgage as well as other costs like electricity. I spent more over $100,000 in all to keep them in their house. They said last month that my sister will inherit the house from them in their will. They informed me that, as their daughter, I had a duty to assist them when I questioned their choice. They now demand that I keep making payments on a home that will never belong to me. I will no longer be used as an ATM, even if I adore my parents. I've included screenshots of several of my mother's bank transfers throughout the years. There was no denying the evidence. The reaction was instantaneous. My post was inundated with encouraging responses from relatives. I didn't know. Your parents said Emma was providing them with financial support, Jasmine. This is ridiculous. You were exploited. Keep going, girl. Cutting them off was the correct thing to do. In the comments, Mom and Emma attempted to accuse me of lying about the money being a gift. No one was purchasing it. Not for the mortgage especially. The proof had been seen by the family. I made the decision to really unplug after that dramatizing outburst. For the remainder of my trip, I switched off my phone, disabled my parents' and sister's accounts, and unfollowed them on all social media sites. The rest of the days in Florida were quiet. I took a day vacation to the Everglades, went parasailing, read novels on the beach, and began to plan my future with an additional $2,400 every month. In fact, I could begin saving for a house of my own. I felt a sense of possibilities and thrill at the concept. When I took a plane back home after my holiday, I felt rejuvenated and focused. I was carrying in my stuff when I was stopped by the concierge in my apartment complex. Your parents stopped over yesterday to inquire about you, Miss Jasmine. They wanted to know if you had returned from your trip. They were attempting to ambush me at home because my heart sunk. Right now, I appreciate you informing me, Miguel. Please don't let them go if they return. I'd rather not see them. With empathy, he nodded. I get it. I'll also let the other concierge know, Miss Jasmine. For the first time in years, I threw myself into my job during the next few weeks. Every month, I was saving a substantial amount of money. I worked with a financial advisor to develop a strategy for saving money for a down payment on a house of my own. I estimated that I would have enough money for a small condo in a desirable area in a year. The feeling of liberation was euphoric. By joining a hiking club and accepting invites to happy hours with coworkers, I began interacting with people more. It was a nice life. My parents were waiting for me in the parking lot when I left my office building one evening, around 2 months after the family dinner disaster. Even though I felt sick to my stomach, I remained calm and went up to them. Mom had black bags beneath her eyes and appeared thinner. In some way, Dad looked older. He drooped his shoulders. What are you looking for? I asked, avoiding close contact. Mom came forward with beseeching eyes. Please, Jasmine, we must speak. Mom moved forward, her hands clenched. We made a mistake, Jasmine. She looked at her father as we were conversing. We are prepared to alter the will. We can make it equitable. You and Emma should divide everything between you. All we need is your assistance paying the mortgage. Please. I couldn't resist laughing. It was quite clear. Is that the reason you're here? Do you still want my money? Dad insisted that it wasn't like that. We truly apologized. Are you sad your ATM stopped operating, or are you just sorry? Mom's face fell flat. How come you're so icy? You were reared by us. After that, you took advantage of me for 3 years. Emma did nothing, but I paid your expenses. Then you made the decision to let her handle everything. The only reason you're here now is to get money. Mom's voice rose in despair as she stated, We can't make the mortgage payments. Foreclosure is being threatened by the bank. Emma seems to be having trouble with that, I said icily. She will get the home, correct? Let her solve it. I'm powerless, Mom sobbed. She must consider the children. I shook my head, not believing it. What do you know? I no longer give a damn. Emma is 35 years old. Her children attend school. Nothing will stop her from trying to assist you. However, no, I interrupted her. I'm finished. In the past 3 years, I've spent more than $100,000 in you. I could have utilized that money for my own future and my own house. Furthermore, you lacked the grace to express gratitude. When Mom burst into tears, a few of my coworkers who were heading to their cars turned to stare at her with interest. I was too familiar with this strategy now. The tears were only one more way to control them. I'm hoping you and Emma can work things out, I remarked as I unlocked the door of my automobile. Get 2 jobs, perhaps. When people are unable to pay their expenses, they do that. You are solely to blame for this. As I climbed into my car, Mom yelled, "If only you had continued to assist us." As I drove away, I closed the door and interrupted her. I noticed them standing in the parking lot, with Dad attempting to calm Mom down as she continued to rant. They vanished from my rearview mirror, and I was relieved. 6 months have passed since that altercation. As promised, I haven't paid them a dime since. My cousin Alicia, who continues to update me in spite of my parents' efforts to turn the family against me, says as much. To assist with the home payments, they both secured part-time work. Mom works 3 days a week as an administrative assistant at a dentist clinic, and Dad works the weekends at a hardware shop. Emma still doesn't provide them with financial support. She's too busy convincing everyone that I'm the bad guy in this tale, that I left my old folks behind because I was jealous. She continues to try even if the majority of the family no longer believes her. After stopping that cash drain, I'm doing better than ever. I've saved up around $20,000 for a down payment on a home of my own. I'll be ready to buy in another 6 months, according to my financial counselor, which is far earlier than I had anticipated. I've also resumed dating. It's good to go out to eat or see a movie without wondering about if the money should go to my parents instead, but nothing major yet. I signed up for a yoga class and a book club. I spent years depriving myself of small pleasures. I saw my sister at the grocery store last month. Eventually, it was inevitable in a community that size. Lily and Tyler, who have grown since I last saw them, were with her. When they first saw me, they rushed over with jazz and excitement. Lily hugged my legs and squealed. "Despite everything, we still miss you." I was unable to contain my smile. "I have also missed you, child." Emma stepped forward warily, her face reserved. "Children, come on, we're rushing." She stopped to glance at me as she drew them away. "You know, Mom and Dad are having a hard time. After doing those extra jobs, they're worn out." I slowly looked into her eyes. "That's difficult. You might be able to assist them." She became red. "I have kids to provide for, so you say." I looked at my shopping cart once more. "Farewell, Emma." After they departed, I had a peculiar sense of calm as I completed my shopping. I would have been wounded and enraged after that incident 6 months ago. I simply felt disengaged now, as if I were seeing the family drama of someone else. I had a glass of wine and sat on my balcony that evening, browsing through my laptop's real estate listings. Not far from work, a charming 2-bedroom condo just went up for sale. I remembered to give my realtor a call first thing in the morning. My cousin Alicia texted me, and my phone buzzed. "This Sunday, the family will eat supper at Grandma's. She wanted me to invite you in particular. Your parents and Emma won't be present." I returned the text with a smile. I would really want to attend. Learning that family isn't always what you want it to be has been a difficult road. Those who exploit your kindness are sometimes the ones who ought to love you the most. Although it was an unpleasant lesson, it was essential. I don't despise my sister or my parents. I've moved past the rage that overwhelmed me following that disastrous supper. I feel horrible for them now. I'm sorry they were unable to enjoy what they had. They regret losing a daughter who would have done anything for them if they had only been fair because of their avarice and partiality. However, I don't regret cutting them off. It turned out to be the healthiest choice I've ever made. I shut off my computer and gazed up at the night sky. I was appreciative of the clarity that distance brings. Instead of a daughter, my parents desired an ATM. Emma didn't want a sibling, she wanted a scapegoat. I also desired a family that appreciated me. Sometimes we find something better for ourselves when we let go of the things that are hurting us, but we can't always achieve what we want. I'll give you a call tomorrow regarding the condo. I'll eat supper with the family members who still show me respect next week, and I'll keep creating the life I desire every day, free from guilt and manipulation. That's worth more than any inheritance, it turns out.